The Crusader era was one of the most tumultuous periods in history. Several European kingdoms came together to defend the Christian faith and to reconquer Jerusalem, which was under the rule of a Muslim caliphate. Men from diverse social backgrounds responded to the call of the Catholic churches, embarking on pilgrimages to the Holy Land. These men dreamed of knowing the lands over which they had heard incredible stories in preaching in masses. Some were looking for wealthiness and the opportunity to receive noble titles. Some were already descendants of noble lineages. These belonged to the most devastating force on the medieval battlefields, the cavalry. To protect their social status and their own interests, several cavalry orders were created. Cavalry orders were composed of members who shared the same interests and ideals. Those orders had specific functions on the battlefields. The road from the European roads to Jerusalem was full of dangers. Violent groups of looters infested these regions. Many pilgrims ended up dying before seeing the Holy Land. In 1118, to try to solve this problem, King Baldwin II of Jerusalem encouraged the creation of a new cavalry order. The Order of the Poor, Fellow Soldiers of Christ, and of the Temple of Solomon was founded, which became better known as the Order of the Knights Templar. Together with only 8 knights, Hugues de Payens, a French nobleman, created one of the most famous military institutions in history. The initial objective of the Order of the Knights Templar was to protect the Christian pilgrims who were on their way to the Holy Land in search of religious comfort or to enlist in the armies of the Crusaders. With such a noble function, the Knights Templar received many financial donations from the European faithful and even from other cavalry orders. The Order of the Knights Templar grew rapidly in wealth and in the number of members who wanted to fight. In the name of the Christian faith, the Knights Templar amassed immense fame and prestige. Pope Gregory IX exempted the order from paying taxes because the role of this organization in the Crusades was extremely important. As they were not obliged to pay taxes to the church and the crown, the Order of the Knights Templar accumulated wealth without equal. On the battlefield, they utilized chainmail protection from the feet to the head. They also used strong helmets and a wide, heavy sword, capable of causing damage even when it lost its cutting edge. The Templars were easily recognized in battle by their white robes adorned with red crosses. They were known as the most feared group of knights in the Crusades. Despite its renown, the Order of the Knights Templar was never very large. It had roughly 400 members at its height. The Knights Templar organized nearly suicidal attacks, causing horror as they broke through enemy lines with fearlessness, driven by their religious fervor and dedication to the order of which they were a part. The knights were bound by a severe code of behavior in their daily lives, even when they were not engaged in combat. Specifically, they were instructed to embrace a humble and modest existence, mirroring the lifestyle of Catholic monks. They followed their vows of chastity, abstained from eating meat on Wednesdays, prayed for hours and begged for forgiveness for using violence, and were not allowed to consume the flesh of their combat horses, even in cases where the animal passed away naturally. In addition, regardless of status, all members of the order would have to eat from the same bowl and receive the same quantity of food and wine during meals. The Templars were also forbidden to hug or kiss any woman on the lips or the cheek, not even if the woman was their own mother. This ideal of poverty was represented in the famous image of 2 riders riding the same horse, a sign of humility and rejection of one's pride. The Knights Templar Order would also have to give a new opportunity to the knights who had been excommunicated by the Catholic Church. If the excommunicated knights embraced the beliefs and values of the Knights Templar, they would be given another opportunity to satisfy the divine. They would be able to rejoin Christian social circles in this way. The Templar Order was divided into various hierarchies. Members who proved their worth could reach new positions, such as treasurer, who took care of finances, or master of weapons to train new recruits. Each cavalry order was commanded by its leaders, usually members of the high nobility. The Order of the Knights Templar was commanded by a nobleman who held the title of Master of the Temple of Jerusalem. With the accumulation of victories in the fight against the Saracens, several of these leaders developed new goals. A few cavalry orders turned into adversaries in politics. Who was to hold the conquered lands and receive their taxes was a topic of regular discussion. The Templars were supposed to be obedient to the church only, but in some cases, they acted on their own ambition, attacking caravans and even Muslim villages in theft of objects of value. The Templars achieved many victories against the Saracen armies. But in 1187, the Battle of Hattin occurred. In that battle, a great army of Crusaders, followed by Knights Templar, faced the Saracen troops commanded by Saladin. The battle was chaotic and brutal. The Crusaders were defeated and lost the city of Jerusalem. That event weakened the prestige of many cavalry orders. The Knights Templar amassed such wealth that they began lending money to European kings and religious authorities. They gained widespread respect from lords and feudal leaders due to their practice of not charging interest on loans. The Order of the Knights Templar evolved into a prominent banking institution, attracting deposits from kings and popes who trusted the safety of their funds under the protection of the poor Knights of Christ. Facing insurmountable debts, Philip IV of France formed alliances with fellow nobles and Pope Clement V to overthrow the Knights Templar order and confiscate all its wealth. The plan worked. The respected Knights Templar were accused of heretical crimes against the holiness of the Church. Worshipping pagan symbols and engaging in mysterious sects were two of the accusations. Subsequently, they endured persecution, imprisonment, and brutal torture. Some fled to distant lands of Rome, like Spain, Portugal, and England. Still, many lost their lives while swearing to be innocent and defending the honor of the Templar Order. On March 22, 1312, Pope Clement V officially declared the Order of the Knights Templar extinct. The last Templar leader was Jacques de Molay, who was executed at a pyre in Paris. Legend has it that before Molay was burned to death, he cursed King Philip IV and Pope Clement V, saying that both would be accountable to God within a year. And yes, the king and the pope lost their lives within a year. The remains of the sordid King Philip IV were stored at Poix convent. The site was then struck by lightning, which set fire to the convent, along with the remains of King Philip IV of France. There are many stories and legends about the Knights Templar Order. Most of its treasure was never found. It is still wanted these days. In antiquity, there was a belief that the Knights Templar discovered the Holy Grail chalice used by Jesus Christ during the Last Supper. Additionally, it was rumored that within their clandestine vaults, they safeguarded renowned relics such as the Ark of the Covenant, housing the tablets of the Ten Commandments and other sacred items. There is a belief that the surviving Templars went on to establish Freemasonry, concealing their secrets within the framework of this new clandestine organization. However, it's worth noting that Freemasonry emerged around 400 years after the decline of the Knights Templar, so this is impossible. In 2007, the Vatican recognized the historical injustice inflicted upon the Knights Templar, clearing them of charges related to witchcraft and other heretical practices against the Catholic Church. The Knights Templar story stands as a powerful testament to the influence of faith in an ideal. While royal greed may drive acts of betrayal, the Templars will forever be remembered in history with admiration and reverence.